Hi, I'm Adamsdownboy, and welcome to the 9th and final video in our guide to the D2 reprised Kingsfall raid. Although I am planning a quick bonus video to illustrate the location of the hive runes that unlocks the additional boss chest with a guaranteed red border weapon once I'm done here. With me are my Muthaclucker clanmates, Alba Aura, Alex, Dazzy, Electric Sheep, Tooks and Zone Runner to help me demonstrate the last encounter, Oryx, the Taken King. As I've done throughout the series, I'll apologise for the quiet voice recording of some of the fireteam members. I think I might have found a way of recording all of the various audio and syncing it with the video, giving me a bit more control for next time. This is the raid boss fight, the second encounter in Threshold following your defeat of Oryx's daughters, and your aim is to kill him to finish the raid. You'll need to stun him by detonating corrupted light bombs to open a vulnerable spot in his chest to damage him, while being protected from his doxology wipe mechanic within an aura of immortality. To do this, like in the Daughters encounter, you'll collect the pieces of a brand claimer buff before finally claiming it to then steal the brand from an elite hive knight called the Vessel of Oryx. If you want to learn more about the lore behind this encounter, and what the mechanics are actually doing, then My Name is Bife has a video on the subject that I'll link to in the description below. After finishing the Daughters, you'll see Toland's Spark appear at the far end of the Threshold arena, where Saturn is in view. Approaching the Spark starts the encounter, so make sure everyone has rallied to collect power ammo before running up. As for the Daughters, you'll need 1 defender per column plate and 2 floaters as you did for the Death Singers encounter. It's easiest for everyone to keep the same role as before. After you start the encounter, Oryx will appear, flex for a few seconds, and then Taken adds will start to spawn continuously around the arena. A few moments later, 4 orange bar Ravenous Taken Knights will spawn, 1 on each column plate. Once these are killed, Oryx will move to one side to take position at one of the column plates before slamming his fist down. As he raises it again, the plate will glow green in the same way as it did in the Daughters encounter, and one Guardian will be torn between dimensions. The mechanics of collecting the pieces of Brand Claimer are identical to the Daughters encounter. If you want a more detailed explanation, just have a quick look at our video covering the Daughters of Oryx, but I'll just run through them again quickly. The defender assigned to the plate first jumps up to capture and hold it, calling start and the plate they're standing on. They'll then spot which column plate the Spark is floating above and call that out as the finished plate for the assigned Guardian there to jump up and hold to create the floating platforms. As before, if the Torn Guardian is a defender assigned to the start or finish plate, the floater covers their station and any responsibilities they have. The defenders must stand continuously on the start and finish plates to maintain the floating platforms until the Torn Guardian has jumped up to the Spark and run through, and everyone sees the "A piece of the Blight Claimer is found" message, after which the Torn Guardian calls for defenders to jump down from the now red and damaging plates. After they step off, the message "The platforms fade from existence" will appear on screen for everyone. Just a reminder, it's still possible for the Torn Guardian to use the higher central columns that the Daughters floated above to shortcut the first couple of invisible platforms and save a little time if you're running the length of the arena to get to the start plate, or if you misjump and fall off. There are additional mechanics for the Oryx fight, the first of which is the emergence of 4 yellow bar Light Eater Ogres. They emerge from the smooth dark area between the column plate and the central columns that the Daughters were on. The first one will emerge from the next column plate around in an anti-clockwise direction to the start plate, and continuing anti-clockwise until the fourth one spawns next to the start plate again. In this example, assuming Oryx is at the L2 plate when he slams his fist down, the first ogre to spawn will be at L1, then R1, then R2, and finally at L2. The defenders responsible for that column plate, plus available floaters, need to kill these ogres quickly. They drop a corrupted light bomb that looks like a blight sphere on their corpse. Don't use a melee attack or a shotgun to kill the ogre, or step inside the blight aura for now, or you'll cause a team wipe. The reason you want to kill the ogre where it spawns is that you don't want the bomb to sit in a busy ad area where someone might accidentally trigger it, and a melee or shotgun kill will likely mean you'll be standing next to the bomb when it spawns and you'll automatically trigger it. After the ogres are killed, in amongst the Taken ads that are spawning in the corners of the room, 2 yellow bar Light Eater Hive Knights will appear and travel towards the corrupted light bomb diagonally opposite. These must also be killed quickly by all non-Taunt defenders and floaters. If left alive, they will consume the bomb and reduce the time you'll have as a fire team for the boss damage phase. After the Taunt Guardian has collected the first piece of Brand Claimer and called for the defenders to step off their plates, everyone should check their column plates to see if they're glowing green. The one that is the new start plate. Repeat the process of jumping up, spotting the spark and calling the location out, and having the Taunt Guardian collect the piece of Brand Claimer again. The third time, an orange bar Hive Knight called the Vessel of Oryx with an invulnerability aura will be dropped off by a tomb ship at the Saturn end of the arena. As was the case in the Daughters encounter, instead of running through the relic at the top of the invisible platforms to collect a piece of the Brand Claimer, the Taunt Guardian will have to interact with it to retrieve the Brand Claimer buff with a 30-second timer. The Brand Claimer Guardian will need to jump down to the Vessel of Oryx, who should be near the 2 daughter columns in the middle of the arena, and interact to steal its brand of immortality, then killing it. During all of this, an unseen timer will have been counting down in the background. You will have the same 2 minutes from when Oryx slams his fist down to steal the brand of immortality and kill the Vessel of Oryx as you had in the Daughters encounter, otherwise you will have no way of surviving Oryx's doxology attack, seen on screen as Oryx calls upon the darkness, as he conjures a ball of darkness and then claps his hands to create a blinding light which will wipe the team. Assuming that you've killed the Vessel of Oryx, the defenders and any floater covering a plate will need to take position by the corrupted light bombs outside its dark aura. The moment Oryx slams his fist down and the Oryx calls upon the darkness message appears on screen, all 4 need to move into the bomb aura until you see the message channeling corrupted light on screen. You don't need to dive into the corrupted light sphere itself until the message "Your Guardian's name has detonated a corrupted light" appears. You now have only 5 seconds to reach the aura of immortality before the bombs explode. You'll see this on screen as a blinding burst of light, so whoever has the brand will need to stay in the middle of the arena to make sure no one has to run too far. This will stun Oryx, interrupt the doxology attack and open his chest to reveal his crit spot. As soon as you reach the aura with the rest of your fire team, you should start boss DPS. You can damage the darkness sphere of his doxology attack as though it was Oryx. Put down a well, unload your power weapons and burst damage supers into the crit zone on Oryx's chest until he's immune again. You will have 25 seconds for damage with 4 bomb detonations and progressively less if any were consumed by Light Eater Knights. After he recovers, he'll return to the Saturn end of the arena and the fire team can wait in the middle to see which of 2 intermission attacks Oryx will use. The first is to create a hemispherical bubble just in front of him, containing a darkness dimension, which we call the Thunderdome. The fire team should all make their way towards it and start killing the Taken Thrall ads spawning on the left and right side of the bubble. Touching the edge of the bubble is an instant death, so stay away. The fire team will be teleported into the darkness dimension one at a time. There will be an echo of Oryx that will be familiar to D1 veterans, which appears sporadically around the arena and occasionally float in to perform a slam attack with his sword, Willbreaker. Any Taken Thrall that survive from the outside will also make their way in and need to be dealt with too. The fire team members inside the bubble must kill the echo. There's no health bar, so just keep shooting whenever you see it until the Thunderdome vanishes and you find yourself back in the Threshold arena again. The other intermission attack is a mini corrupted light bomb attack, which we don't get to see in this video, so I've added in a short clip of one of my runs to show what it looks like. You'll see the orange bar Revenant Taken Knight spawn in on the 4 column plates. If this happens, everyone will need to ensure they're well away from the bomb detonations, as being caught in one is an instant kill. The easiest way to do this is to keep moving. Defenders should make their way to their column plates and run in a circle around the perimeter, and floaters should run in a path from side to side at their end of the arena. As you run, you'll see a ring indicating the blast radius of the next bomb to spawn, which you'll be outside of if you keep sprinting. After 6 bombs have spawned, the attack is over. The way to tell which is happening is to watch the top of the column plates. If you see the knight spawn, it'll be bombs. If you don't see the knight spawn, it'll be thunderdome. After 6 bombs have spawned, the attack is over. The way to tell which is happening is to watch the top of the column plates. If you see the knight spawn, it'll be bombs. If you don't see the knight spawn, it'll be thunderdome. If you don't see the knight spawn, it'll be thunderdome. After the intermission attack, Guardians should return to their assigned stations to kill the Orange Bar Revenant Taken Knights when they spawn, wait for Oryx to choose a new start plate, and rinse and repeat the Brand Claimer cycle. Oryx will enrage and be essentially impossible to beat after 6 damage phases or 15 minutes. You'll get an Enrages Near warning on screen, but that should never happen if you're killing the Light Eater Knights to maximise your DPS time and have decent damage output. In our experience, after 2 damage phases, you'll probably be approaching the damage marker in his health bar. Check with everyone that they have sufficient power ammo and supers. If you're short, you might want to pause damage and run a 3rd Brand Claimer phase as an ammo run. If your fire team decides you're all good for the Oryx kill, damaging up to the marker will initiate his last stand. He'll move to the Saturn end of the arena, and 2 final Light Eater Ogres will spawn at the L2 and R2 column plates. The fire team should kill these quickly, and the L2 and R2 defenders, or if one of them is holding the Brand of Immortality, the floater who was covering the bomb, stand outside the bomb aura until Oryx calls upon the darkness one last time, at which point they should both detonate their bomb as before and then sprint back to the Immortality aura. It's possible to extend the damage window and improve damage output by detonating the corrupted light bombs individually. That is, detonating 1 bomb and 5 Guardians damaging Oryx until you see the message that Oryx calls upon the darkness again when you detonate the second. I'd say we've never found that to be necessary. Once killed, Oryx's body will float off towards Saturn and the raid is finished. Congratulations! You can drop the Midas Reckoning fusion rifle and Zaoli's Bane hand cannon, and helmet and chest armour from this chest, and, if RNG smiles upon you, the Touch of Malice exotic scout rifle. If you've successfully shot the glyphs that were shown back in the Hall of Souls, then there's also a second chest with a guaranteed deep sight weapon. You'll also have an opportunity to buy randomly rolled weapons and armour from the Remnant of Oryx vendor with the Spoils of Conquest currency, with the first weapon purchased from your account every week also being a deep sight version. There are no snipers on floating platforms in the Oryx encounter as there were with the Daughters, so your loadout only needs to include primaries to deal with enemies at mid to close range. A special weapon to kill the Knights and Ogres quickly, and a weapon rolled for boss damage should round out your loadout. Primary and special weapons that can deal with groups of adds, with traits like Incandescent and Volt Shot, or exotic weapons like Osteostriga and Witherhoard are top tier. A Reservoir Burst fusion rifle or chain reaction grenade launcher can wipe out a wave of adds in one go, and Arbalest will one-shot crit Revenant and Light Eater Knights and make short work of the Ogres. When we recorded this, Divinity debuffed targets by 30%, but since its nerf, Divinity isn't really needed. Oryx's crit spot is pretty much as big as the crit cage it generates, and mathematically the extra damage you'll get from a Guardian shooting with a sustained damage weapon outweighs the current 15% debuff. For boss damage, our meta was linear fusion rifles rolled with Clown Cartridge, Triple Tap or Demolitionist for the instant reload when you throw a grenade, and a damage perk such as Firing Line, Frenzy, Bait and Switch or Vorpal Weapon. On the plus side, LFRs mean no one's going to die from hitting the back of a teammate's head, well, not unless you're using Sleeper Simulant. If you're lucky and have already dropped the Touch of Malice raid exotic, this can be excellent as a backup boss DPS weapon, as standing in the Aura of Immortality means you can continuously fire the enhanced final round without losing health. Outbreak Perfected is another great backup boss damage choice. It's very useful to have a Well of Radiance or a Ward of Dawn to improve damage output against Oryx. If you have a surplus of Warlocks, roaming supers to generate orbs for other supers are probably a better bet than a Nova Bomb, as the Cataclysm Slover will interfere with fireteam shots while it's travelling. Hunters should use burst damage supers such as Golden Gun or Gathering Storm, maybe not so much Blade Barrage as you're a bit far away and some of the blades will likely miss. Titans can use a roaming super to generate orbs to recharge other supers, or can cling on to a Thunder Crash for a final stand YOLO attack if you need a last minute bit of damage on Oryx and everyone's out of power ammo. For the final encounter, Sheep sets up on L1 and Dazzy on R1 as defenders, and Alex acts as the floater near the door. At the far end of the arena, Alba sets up on L2 and Zone on R2 as defenders, with Tukes floating. Tukes starts the encounter after Sheep's unfortunate Chonka-related incident, and Oryx appears. After killing a small initial wave of taken thrall, the 4 orange bar knights spawn on the column plates and are killed. Oryx goes left and stops at Alba's plate at L2, which will be the first starter plate.
Oh, chonk, sorry. I spaced out.
That
Thank you.
did.
Alright, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. And yes, the chonk broke.
Gotta get it on this run then.
You don't need it anymore.
Okay, I need to start wearing safety glasses.
How the heavy haven't I had lying around?
Alba.
After Oryx slams his fist down, Alba jumps up when the plate is glowing green. Dazzy, who is torn, makes his way to the L2 plate. Alba calls out that the finish plate is Dazzy's at R1, so Alex, as the floater at that end of the arena, jumps up to cover. Because Dazzy is torn for the first part of the brand claiming phase, Alex will need to kill the Light Eater Ogre at the R1 plate and be ready to then kill the Light Eater Knight that spawns to consume the corrupted light bomb.
I'm torn.
Dazzy demonstrates the shortcut, jumping up to the left daughter column and from there to the second floating platform before collecting the first piece of the brand claimer at the top of the 4 platforms. As he collects the piece, he tells the defenders to get off their plates. The fire team continues to kill the Light Eater Ogres as they spawn, and then immediately look to the Light Eater Knights spawn locations to kill them as they make their way to the bombs.
On.
You can get off.
Alex is next to be torn. As he was covering Dazzy's R1 plate, he lets Dazzy and Sheep know that he won't be able to kill the knight, so they will have to make sure it's killed between them. After checking the column plates at the front of the arena and seeing they're inactive, Alex makes his way to the back and sees that Alba's column plate is glowing and calls it as the start plate. He then sees and calls out the finish plate as zones at R2.
I'm torn. Someone needs to take my knight.
Oh!
Where did we start? Okay, in Alba's plate, it seems. Going to Zone's plate.
Okay. I'm on.
Third time around, Alba is torn. Sheep calls out that his plate is the start plate at L1 and the finish plate is zones at R2. In Alba's absence, Tukes takes on ad clear duties around the L2 column plate and confirms he will be detonating the corrupted light bomb there before boss DPS. With this being the third part of the cycle, the vessel of Oryx Knight is dropped from the tomb ship and the other defenders start to move to stand close to their bombs, ready to detonate them. After interacting to collect the brand claimer buff, Alba jumps down to the knight and interacts with it to steal the brand of immortality before killing it with Alex's help.
You can leave.
I'm torn.
Sheep's plate.
Where are you going, Sheep?
Going to zones.
Oh, okay.
Tukes, can you
I'm on.
cover
I was
Alba's? Yep.
No, can you just leave as like in mid?
Yep.
Defenders plus Tukes covering Alba's plate at L2 stand by their bombs until they see the message. Oryx calls upon the darkness on screen as he slams his fist down. At that moment, they move to stand within the bomb aura until they see the message, "Their name has detonated a corrupted light." They then sprint towards Alba and the aura of immortality and start boss DPS. The bomb detonation interrupts Oryx's doxology attack and stuns him, exposing the crit spot in his chest.
Firebombs.
Firebombs.
That sounds good.
Get him.
After the boss damage phase, Oryx returns to the Saturn end of the arena. As no knights spawn on the platforms, the fire team knows that it will be the darkness dimension, so move to the back of the arena to help clear ads before they can enter the Thunderdome. Zone is the first to be pulled in, then Alba. They scan the perimeter for an echo of Oryx using audio clues to determine where it is. Headphones really help with this, and then shoot when they see it. Dazzy is third in as the echo comes into the dome to perform a sword slam attack. There's a moment's pause as it does so, which is a good time to stick a grenade or a witherhoard shot on him. Then Sheep, then Tukes, and finally Alex are pulled in before the echo is defeated and the fire team returns to the threshold.
Thunderdome. Okay, I'm in.
The fire team now resets back to their start positions to rinse and repeat, killing the 4 knights on the column plates, Oryx choosing one to be the start plate, killing light eater ogres and knights, obtaining the brand claimer, stealing the brand of immortality, detonating the corrupted light bombs, and damaging Oryx. I'll now run the rest of the encounter, watch across the fire team to see all the mechanics explained and how the flow of communication works, pausing and repeating as necessary to help with your understanding. Watch out for both Dazzy and Sheep demonstrating different ways to use the floating platform shortcut. Dazzy again cuts out the start plate in the first platform entirely, while Sheep uses the central column platform to start his jumping before the floating platforms are formed to save time.
Coming to Sheep.
Sheep's step.
Are we going Sheep?
Oh, sorry. Going to zones.
I'm on.
Get off.
Up towards.
Will do.
And it's my flare.
You're not, you're over.
Going to Desert Flame. Ah, one of the witches is still there.
Yeah.
Oh, ship is stunned. Going from ship's plate. Someone needs to come here. Thank you, Alex. Going to zones.
To zone.
Okay. I'm on.
I'll do first while Albert can save you for this stuff.
I'll take sheep's bomb.
Thank you. Brown claimer. Got it.
And
Jump in.
Final stand.
Give me the exotic for the video.
yeah. Just give me the exotic now, game. No? You got it again. Oh, screw you!
As the Cluckers two-phased Oryx, there was no possibility of seeing the second intermission attack, so I've saved a short clip from a separate run to illustrate it. As you can see, I'm assigned to the L2 column plate. When I see the knight spawn on top of the plate, I immediately start running in a circle around it so that when the bombs spawn, I'm outside the blast radius ring when it detonates, and also so the boomer knight shots fall behind me. I count the 6 bombs as they spawn, after which the attack is over and I can then jump up to kill the knight.
Well, survey says it
It's
is.
bombs.
Yep, running.
Run away!
He's back.
Silver.
I think we demonstrate again that there's a fair bit of flex in the King's Fall encounters, Oryx included. You will have noticed that not everyone was watching for the knight spawns to call the start plates, and once up on the first plate, defenders were sometimes distracted, so the call for the finish plate wasn't made unless they were prompted or until the Torn Guardian arrived, but that doesn't matter too much on our run. Things like that are more important if you ever plan to try the master version of the raid, so they're good habits to get into. So, that's it for our King's Fall raid video guide series, cruelly demonstrating Bungie's RNG for raid exotic drops for Alex. Like those films that tell you where everyone ended up after the movie finished, Alex finally dropped his touch of malice 2 months later after 50 clears. I got mine after 2. That's RNG for you. Hopefully, if you've not run it before, you should now have an idea of how the mechanics work for each encounter, and if you've only run it once or twice, you'll now understand what the fireteam roles are, so you can step forward to volunteer and gain experience. This has been another labour of love. As you can tell, we're not exactly professionals at doing this, and producing the video takes a few months of my effort, and I'll be trying to balance that against playing Destiny myself and not falling too far behind the grind, but we think it's a good use of time. There'll be one more short video after this one, which will just show the locations of the 9 runes, so you know where they are to shoot to get the additional deep sight weapon drop from the Oryx boss fight that I'll link to when it's ready. It's a really fun raid to run. For D1 veterans, it's a bit of nostalgia and was most people's favourite raid of the era. For those who weren't around then, it provides a little insight into how we Guardians killed one of the Witness's most powerful allies before Gaul turned up at the start of D2 and spoiled our party. As ever, I'd like to thank Kyber from kyber3000.com for permission to use the raid loot infographic. And finally, from everyone at the Muthaclucker clan, thank you for watching. We hope that's helped you, and may all your drops be god rolls.